By the time search teams returned to the Alaska forest for one final sweep, no one expected to find anything new. 5 years had passed. Hope had already been buried beneath snowstorms, silence, and unanswered questions. But when a ranger knelt beside an ancient pine tree and saw a light blue long-sleeve shirt tangled under its exposed roots, everything froze. The fabric was twisted, dirty, and strangely pulled downward, as if something or someone had shoved it there. And that shirt, it belonged to a man whose disappearance never made sense. 5 years after a man named Evan Ryder vanished without a trace, the last thing anyone expected was that something of his would resurface. His case had faded into the long list of missing persons swallowed by the Alaska backwoods. His mother had stopped giving interviews. Investigators moved on. Search volunteers stopped returning to the ridge. But nature has a cruel sense of timing. Today's story uncovers the chilling mystery of what really happened to Evan Ryder, and why every clue points to the fact that he wasn't alone in those woods. If you're new here, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our true crime mysteries. Now let's go back to how all of this started. In 2023, after a winter so brutal it uprooted half the pines along Black Spruce Ridge, a ranger stumbled upon a patch of earth torn open by the violent frost. Tangled in the roots of a massive fallen pine tree was a light blue long-sleeve shirt, dirt-stained, weather-beaten, and twisted like someone had shoved it deep into the soil. It took only seconds for the ranger to recognize it. Photos of that shirt had been circulated everywhere back in 2018. And when investigators confirmed it belonged to Evan Ryder, a case long believed to be finished reopened itself without warning. But that was only the beginning. Because the shirt wasn't just lying under the roots. It was hidden. Forced beneath the tree in a way that didn't make sense. Not for an accident, not for weather, only for a person. And that single piece of fabric revived a story the forest thought it had buried forever. Before Evan became a headline or a case number, he was simply a quiet, unassuming 33-year-old man who preferred the company of maps over people. Born in Anchorage, raised in a family that valued structure and routine, he had grown into someone who moved through life with precision. He worked as a field survey technician, someone who spent long hours navigating wild terrain, logging elevation points, tracking soil density, and mapping untouched forest. It wasn't glamorous, but Evan loved it. He loved the quiet, the methodical nature of documenting the land, and the comfort of predictability out in the open. Co-workers said he always double-checked his gear, carried more supplies than needed, filed precise route logs, and never took unnecessary risks. He was the type of person who would leave a note if he stepped outside to breathe for 2 minutes. So when he disappeared without leaving a trace, even though all his habits pointed otherwise, investigators immediately sensed something was wrong. On the morning of September 9, 2018, Evan checked in to map a remote area along Black Spruce Ridge near Talman Creek, Alaska. It was a harsh corridor of dense woods, deep overgrowth, and high ridges known for swallowing sound. Locals rarely hiked there. Even hunters avoided that area, not because of wildlife, but because of the uncanny silence that lived within the pines. That morning, Evan parked his work truck, recorded his coordinates, zipped up his jacket, logged the expected survey route, and then walked into the woods wearing his light blue long-sleeve shirt. He never returned. Search teams found nothing, not his pack, not his tools, not even a footprint. It was as if the forest simply breathed in and exhaled him out of existence. Except, years later, that same forest breathed out a clue that changed everything. When Evan missed his check-in that evening, protocol kicked in fast. His supervisor called his phone 6 times. No signal. The local ranger station sent 2 officers to the trailhead. His truck was still there, locked, keys inside a small magnetic box he always kept under the wheel well. There were no signs of struggle, no signs of wildlife activity, no disturbed vegetation. His trail map, usually stapled to a clipboard in his truck, was missing, an odd detail noted but not understood. By dawn, search and rescue volunteers from Talmen Creek, state troopers, and canine units were on site. They formed lines and combed through miles of forest. Helicopters scanned from above with heat sensors. Traditional search grids were expanded twice. The dogs picked up a faint scent on the second day, then abruptly lost it in a patch of moss that didn't seem disturbed at all. One handler later said the cadence of the trail felt wrong. It wasn't like he wandered. It was like he was walking, and then stopped existing. They found only one thing, a ripped sheet from a notebook. A page forced, not cut. It had 2 words written in Evan's neat handwriting. Saw footprints. And then the sentence ended. The rest of the investigation would echo that same unfinished feeling. Talmen Creek is small, smaller than most towns that show up on Alaska maps. News travels fast, especially when a man disappears in the woods behind your home. Within a week, rumors flooded the cafes and logging stations. He wasn't alone on that trail. A stranger was seen shadowing him. There were 2 sets of footsteps near the spruce line. Someone else walked out of that forest. 3 hikers claimed they saw another man behind Evan, about 100 yards back, late morning on the day he disappeared. They described him vaguely, tall, wearing a hood, but none got a good look at his face. Investigators took statements, but with no evidence and no identity, the lead evaporated like breath in cold air. Still, the theory lingered. Not for nothing. Not because people wanted drama, but because Evan was experienced, cautious, methodical, and the forest conditions that day were not enough to trap a man like him. Something else must have been there. Something or someone. 2 years later, long after hope had been replaced by grief, and grief replaced by resignation, something surfaced that shattered the case open again. In March 2020, a pair of snowmobilers found a steel 55-gallon barrel deep in the woods, far from any road or access trail. Only the top rim stuck out from the snow. They expected to find trash. But the moment authorities opened it, a foul, frozen odor seeped out, one that every investigator recognized instantly. Inside were bone fragments, ribs in an unnatural stack, part of a jawbone, and no clothing whatsoever. DNA confirmed what everyone feared. The remains belonged to Evan Ryder. This discovery raised more questions than answers. The barrel's placement was bizarre. No ATV could have reached that location. The ground was uneven, surrounded by thick brush. Moving it would have required strength, planning, and familiarity with the terrain. Even stranger, the remains inside were arranged, not dumped. Bones stacked neatly, arms positioned in a compressed angle, skull fragments placed at the bottom. It felt ritualistic, or intentional, or like someone didn't want him found, but not so badly that they buried him. Searchers noticed that his signature light blue shirt was missing. So were his work boots, GPS, and backpack. Why would someone strip him and leave only partial remains inside a barrel? Investigators considered foul play for the first time. But no suspect emerged. No fingerprints. No tire tracks. No tool marks. The forest had swallowed everything except the truth. By 2022, the case had gone cold. Cold enough that when Evan's mother asked the lead investigator whether they'd ever find more answers, he simply said, The forest keeps what it wants. To the public, the case faded. To investigators, it became another unsolved file. To Evan's family, it became a wound that refused to close. But one fact never sat right with anyone. The barrel was not where Evan disappeared, and the shirt was nowhere near the barrel. Someone moved parts of him. Someone separated the evidence. Someone staged him. But who? And why scatter the clues across miles? The answer would come, not from people, but from the forest itself. In April 2023, a historic winter thaw uprooted numerous pine trees across Black Spruce Ridge. The ice that had held the soil together for years suddenly released, tearing roots from the earth. A forest ranger performing erosion checks spotted something pale twisted under a massive set of roots. At first, he thought it was trash. Then fabric. Then a sleeve. A light blue long-sleeve shirt, the one investigators searched for years prior. It was filthy, hard, and clumped with mud. But unmistakably Evan's. And its position was impossible to ignore. The roots had grown around it, yes, but the shirt was not dragged there by nature. Soil compression testing later showed it had been forcibly stuffed downward, wedged between the roots at a depth too precise and deliberate for wind or erosion. Someone had buried it. Not with tools, but with their hands. An analyst said, "This wasn't nature reclaiming fabric. This was concealment." A second discovery made the find even more disturbing. Inside the left sleeve cuff, investigators found a small piece of torn notebook paper. The ink was smeared, the edges decayed, but one chilling line remained visible. "He's still here." Handwriting analysis confirmed it was Evan's. The note alone reframed everything. He left a message. He knew he wasn't alone. He was afraid. When word spread that Evan's shirt had been found, theories resurfaced like ghosts awakened. Was he being followed? The hiker's testimony suddenly felt crucial again. Did he encounter someone hostile? His unfinished notebook entry hinted at this. Why were his clothes separated from his remains? Someone might have wanted to mislead investigators or hide trace evidence. Why hide the shirt under a tree? That kind of concealment takes time and intent. What did the note, "He's still here," mean? Was Evan referring to his unknown pursuer? Or someone living in the woods? Or someone he recognized? And the most unsettling question: why did the person who hid the shirt return to the forest after Evan's death? Or did they never leave? No answer emerged. Only more questions. Using GPS data and search logs, investigators pieced together a likely timeline. Morning. Evan begins his survey, following standard procedure. Late morning. Hikers report seeing a second man trailing him. Early afternoon. Evan writes a note, "Saw footprints," suggesting he noticed he wasn't alone. Unknown moment. He meets whoever was following him. No one knows whether this was a confrontation, a forced abduction, a misdirection, or something else entirely. Late afternoon. Evan disappears. No footprints. No struggle signs. Nothing but silence. Investigators believe Evan was taken, unexpectedly, quickly, and by someone who knew how to avoid leaving evidence. The barrel proved Evan died. But the shirt proved how. People lie with their mouths. Evidence lies with everything else. A shirt shoved under tree roots tells investigators. The killer had time. The killer wasn't afraid of being seen. The killer returned after Evan's death. And the killer wanted to mislead, not erase. The shirt also told investigators that Evan struggled, 2 tears near the shoulder matched human force, not natural decay. And the note inside the sleeve changed the interpretation entirely. Many believe Evan wrote it while hiding or being forced to walk. Some believe he stuffed it into the sleeve hoping someone would find it. Some believe he was signaling that his pursuer was still nearby. But the most chilling theory is this. Evan was alive longer than people thought. And someone kept him alive, hidden, before he died. Locals have long whispered about a man living deep in Black Spruce Ridge. No name. No known address. Someone who avoided civilization for decades. Hunters occasionally spotted a shadowy figure moving between trees at odd hours. Loggers reported tools going missing overnight. Rangers found footprints leading nowhere. Most dismissed it as superstition. But after Evan's shirt was found, the stories came back with force. A retired trapper said, "There's someone out there. I seen him once. Don't know his face, but he ain't right." Another hiker claimed, "Someone followed me for miles. Didn't speak. Didn't run. Just watched." And a third local insisted, "He lives inside the ridge. Knows every inch. Knows where to hide a body." Investigators never officially connected these accounts. But privately, some admitted, if anyone could move in the forest without being seen, if anyone could hide evidence this expertly, if anyone could watch a man and strike at the perfect moment, it was whoever was living out there. Despite new evidence, no arrest has ever been made. No suspect named. No witness came forward. No new remains found. Evan's death certificate reads, "Suspicious death. Circumstances undetermined. Third-party involvement strongly suspected." His family held a second service, this one for the shirt. They buried it in a small plot beside his memorial stone. His mother, now older, still insists, "My son didn't die alone. Someone made sure of that. And that person is still out there." And when asked if she believed her son wrote the note out of fear, she shook her head. He wrote it as a warning. Not for him. For whoever found it. Black Spruce Ridge remains unchanged. Cold. Still. Quiet enough to make the living uncomfortable. Visitors today say the forest feels heavy, as if something unseen walks beside them. Rangers avoid the deeper paths unless necessary. Even wildlife keeps its distance. And every now and then, someone claims they see a figure far between the trees. Watching. Waiting. Moving silently through the thick branches. A shadow that disappears when you blink. No one has been able to prove he exists. No one has been able to prove he doesn't. But the forest remembers. The barrel remembers. The roots that held Evan's shirt remember. And the note he wrote in his final hours remembers too. He's still here. A message not meant for investigators. Not meant for strangers. But meant for anyone who enters those woods. The person Evan feared never left. And that brings us to the most disturbing part of this case. The note found inside the sleeve of his shirt, a note that simply read, "He's still here." Who do you think Evan was referring to? Do you believe someone was stalking him in the forest? Or is the truth hidden somewhere deeper within Alaska's wilderness, still waiting to be found? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more mysterious stories just like this one.